This is 100% Moroccan blackmail. Morocco uses its own population as blackmail against Spain whenever Spain gets closer and warms relations with Algeria. Whenever Spain warms relations with Algeria, which is the rival of Morocco, Morocco and Algeria have rivalry. A lot of it is due to the Western Sahara. You don't need to know too much about their rivalry, but what you do need to know is that whenever Spain warms relations with Algeria, Morocco opens the floodgates and allows its own population to go into the Spanish autonomous zones to basically give a slap in the face to Spain. You know what just happened 10 days ago that basically adds to this? Well, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, for the first time in like 4 years, met with the president of Algeria. So if we search up Algeria meeting here, and it very much so angered here it is. It very much so angered Morocco. So back on July 20th, just 10 days ago, the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez visited Algeria for the first time in 4 years as ties thaw. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said on Monday he visited Algeria for the first time to mend diplomatic ties between the two countries after they frayed by a row over Western Sahara, because I believe Spain at the time stated that they understand Morocco's right to Western Sahara, or Morocco's point of view. In 2022, Madrid abandoned its neutrality stance over the disputed territory and backed Morocco's sovereignty claims. Angering the Algiers, the thaw began last year when Algeria reactivated a friendship treaty it suspended over the dispute. So, at the time, Moroccan media was actually downplaying this meeting. Before it started to happen, they said, oh, the meeting's not going to happen. And then when it did, they downplayed it. But then all of a sudden now, they downplay it, and then all of a sudden today, it seems like the Moroccan authorities, we have footage of them just allowing all of these migrants to come in, all of these Moroccans to come in. And it literally looks like an invasion. Now, it is North Africa, Spanish autonomous cities, but they're just opening it up. This is not just like something randomly happening. This is very much so intentful. Now, I want to explain to you guys, first off, this also happened in 2021, by the way, Morocco-Spain border incident. And you know why it happened back in 2021? A very similar thing. Back in 2021, there was a major migration incident of a massive crossing of people along the beaches of the border between both of the countries in the direction of Ceuta and Melilla in Spain that began in May of 2021. Here's the thing. At the time, Spain allowed the treatment of the president of the basically autonomous movement of the Western Sahara to come be treated in a Spanish hospital. It set off the Moroccans or the Moroccan government who have claim to the territory, who believe that they have claim to the territory. It set them off. Very soon after, all of a sudden, a month after the hospitalization, the Moroccan security forces located on the border relaxed the last control mechanisms, allowing the passage of migrants from Morocco to the Spanish city, most of whom made the journey by swim. So this is a thing that Morocco does. Now, it's funny because when Muammar Gaddafi was in power, he did something similar, but he actually helped out the European government. The EU actually liked Muammar Gaddafi, specifically when it came to migration, even though, NATO forces ended up assisting in his downfall. Specifically when it came to migration, though, and I'm going to show you another article regarding that. But what you guys need to understand now is that this is what's actually going on, and they're trying to paint it as some sort of leftist thing. Now, I told you guys about the Trump administration, and I want to explain that obviously you guys understand the Trump administration does not have good ties with Spain right now. They do not like the Spanish prime minister, neither does Israel, right? Which is actually pretty interesting because when you start to remember that, the Trump administration isn't having good ties with Spain, neither does Israel, and then you see there today, the Israeli Foreign Ministry today congratulated the leadership of the Kingdom of Morocco and the leadership for the throne day. And there has never been really, if you look at Israel's foreign ministry, it's not like they're consistently doing this either. So it's sometimes, this is why this got 2 million views. Because why all of a sudden now, it's a Moroccan holiday, But why all of a sudden now are they celebrating this? It's weird because they've never made these sort of statements regularly with Morocco. And this is why it's getting 2 million views, because people are like, you're doing this on the day that we're seeing all of these videos of migration coming into these Spanish autonomous zones in North Africa. What's going on here? You know, it makes you question it. This is where the Trump administration kind of comes in. This April, okay, the U.S. House of Representatives wrote this, and let me go ahead and share my screen here so you guys can see this better. And this really showed that there was definitely phrase. Okay, U.S. Congressional Committee described Ceuta and Melilla as located in Moroccan territory. This is the first time that we saw this, and you guys might not remember this. It didn't seem like much at the time. For Morocco, which across centuries has never once relinquished its inalienable rights to the cities, every occupied outcrop punctuating its northern shoreline, there is no ordinary diplomatic footnote. This is very much so something that the Trump administration, you know, the Republican establishment, but especially the Trump administration specifically now is doing. They started changing the way they view these territories. I'm not even going to get into this conversation with you guys now about my stance on these territories, about Spain's, you know, these Spanish cities. I don't even want to touch on that. What I want you guys to understand is that the Trump administration changed the language in which they refer to these cities, while the Trump administration has, you know, worsening or heightened tensions with Spanish Prime Minister, the leftist Spanish Prime Minister, who's been very much so upsetting Israel and the United States. And the article says a committee of the United States House of Representatives had formally described those Spanish-administered cities located in Moroccan territory, marking what appears to be the first legislative body in Washington that has cast explicit doubt on Madrid's sovereignty over the two hysterical Moroccan enclaves. The language embedded in page 86 and 87, produced by the House Appropriations Committee, goes further than any American institutional pronouncement on the matter. It states that the committee notes the Spanish-administered cities of Ceuta and Melilla are located in Moroccan territory and remain subject of Morocco's long-standing claim. It then declares support to the Secretary of State's efforts. Every single time Marco Rubio has to just shove his face in there. You know, he really irritates the hell out of me. Into the Marco Rubio's efforts to encourage diplomatic engagement between Morocco and Spain on the future status of Ceuta and Melilla. If you guys are questioning whether or not there is something behind the scenes going on with the Trump administration and Morocco right now, which is, you know, a U.S. ally, especially the Trump administration loves Morocco, it's right here. Okay, this is what's going on. They're behind it. The Trump administration also today, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, they also congratulated Morocco on Throne Day today. It all just comes off fishy, okay? They don't like a leftist government. What they'd love to do is install another right-wing puppet to Israel. They already have a right-wing puppet for Israel in Spain that's, you know, that wants to be the prime minister. He's already been tweeting nonstop about what's happening in Ceuta right now. Yeah, like, oh my gosh, this is because we have a staunch leftist president, and because of these because of this new passing in the Spanish Supreme Court regarding migration, they're trying to make this come off as if it's some sort of, you know, failure with a left government maintaining with migration policies. Now, sure, you can have a debate regarding this, but this specific incident right now is geopolitical. It's not just, oh, you know, we have bad migration policies. No, this is a geopolitical event that was caused because Morocco is blackmailing Spain. The United States wants the same thing to happen. It's kind of a slap in the face to Spain. The U.S., the State Department, and the Israeli Foreign Ministry both congratulate Morocco today on this Throne Day. This is all happening. They're trying to remain oblivious to this. And then in April, we have this going on where all of a sudden now they change the way they even view these cities. And Marco Rubio, of course, being an Israeli shill, also just, you know, going along and stating that he's going to do everything they can to encourage diplomatic engagement. Well, this looks like the best way. It's almost as if, you know, it was just handed to them. Marco Rubio states they want to encourage diplomatic engagement over the cities. And then all of a sudden this happens, tossing the cities into the public awareness about what's going on. It seems like it's almost orchestrated, doesn't it? It seems like it was enforced or implemented behind the scenes. That's exactly what it seems like to me. I want to go ahead and show you this tweet here now. Let me share my screen here. A bit of geopolitics for beginners on the topic of the assault on the Ceuta fence, which I see people very lost about, or worse, lying about intentions, spreading hoaxes. Understanding the context is very important. Morocco is a dictatorship. More specifically, it's an absolute monarchy. And it goes on. Now, I just want to get to the part that's important. This allows him to blackmail, because that's what it is, blackmail, Europe with sub-Saharan immigration and its own population. Most of the young people there have no future at all. In large cities, they organize to jump the fence of the two Spanish autonomous zones. The government of Morocco knows this, and it generates windows of opportunity for them to do their thing whenever it suits their interests. For example, by lifting surveillance at the border on the occasion of Throne Day, the anniversary of Muhammad's sixth rise to power. It has facilitated what happened today. Morocco's negotiating power regarding immigration reaches NATO and the EU to the point that Sanchez had to swallow with potatoes the recognition in 2020 of Morocco's rights over the Sahara. This again happened specifically because Morocco uses it as leverage. In fact, Sanchez tried to make amends by hosting Bahram Ghali, the Secretary General, for medical treatment. This is a story I was telling you guys about in 2021. Morocco's response a few days later was to facilitate a border fence breach in which 8,000 Moroccans entered, 2,000 of them minor. In short, these leaps are not a coincidence, which leads us to wonder what the Moroccan government's motivation is at this moment to trigger today's avalanche. The most likely answer is to destabilize the government. Morocco doesn't currently have a sufficiently strong motivation, but the United States does. I'd say Morocco does, though. I'd say that because Pedro Sanchez met with Algeria recently for the first time in 4 years, I think it frayed the relations. I'm going to be honest. But the United States does, and the U.S. subsidiaries in Spain even more so. It's more fuel to fire the anti-immigration discourse, which has been much electoral potential for the right, which insists on blaming the government for it. When in reality, here the blame simply lies with Morocco and its partners. It's an attack on national sovereignty and a national security issue. Therefore, the army should deeply step in by default. I agree. But watch out, the national emergency doesn't apply here. It's demagoguery. The national emergency is one thing, and it goes on, but I think I read to you guys the most important part here that I wanted you guys to say, that I wanted you guys to see. There's another thing that I wanted to show you guys here. I think I bookmarked some of it. Again, exploiting your own people, using minors as a weapon against Spain. That's what Morocco's dictatorship is playing with. It will never be a reliable partner as long as it is governed by a feudal monarchy. You cannot negotiate with a regime that repeatedly resorts to exploiting human desperation. This is not the time. The question is why. This is not the first time. The question is why now, or why this time. The Spanish president goes to visit Algeria. Western Sahara is back on the table. The Moroccan king then unleashes youths on Spain to remind that he controls the human floodgates. It's a medieval level of pettiness. That's exactly what it is. Here's another statement, again translated from Spanish. Trump, Netanyahu, Ceuta, Abscal, Fagio, connect the dots and the color. This is all because of that. Again, people are stating this consistently. Pedro Sanchez visits Algeria. Morocco launches a border operation against Ceuta. Blaming Pedro Sanchez is not only unpatriotic, it's fifth columnism pro-Muhammad, the king of Morocco. That's what's going on. Now, I told you guys previously. Can you guys also comment in the chat, because I think I messed up, so I don't even see the chat. So now I'm like hoping that you guys see this chat. Let me know. I told you guys previously also that there's also something else going on here, and that on top of everything that we're just talking about, Muammar Gaddafi also had a similar relationship with the EU. This is why I think that the downfall of Muammar Gaddafi, which was facilitated and backed by NATO forces, was probably one of the worst things to happen to Europe. I will stand on this 10 toes down. For those who don't know, Libya was one of the most successful, rich countries in Africa prior to Muammar Gaddafi's downfall. One of the most successful. And they wanted, and I already showed you guys a while ago, the Tucker Carlson interview where Tucker Carlson was interviewing a former congressman that stated that Muammar Gaddafi wanted to have a gold-backed currency in Libya, or sorry, a gold-backed African currency. And that set off the United States, and they were like, absolutely not. And that kind of is what facilitated the NATO-backed uprising that led to Gaddafi's downfall, is because Gaddafi basically wanted a currency, an African currency, to take on the US dollar and to take on the EU. Okay, that was some of the reasoning. That's what some people say. And then, of course, also oil. And then, of course, Israel doesn't like Libya, never liked Muammar Gaddafi. There was the whole weapon, the whole chemical weapons thing, or these. There was just a lot of reasons. So it was because of, one, financial reasons, because of Zionist reasons, because of Western reasons. There was a lot of reasons why they wanted to take out Muammar Gaddafi. Okay. For the case of this video, what you guys need to understand is there's one thing that Europe really benefited from with Gaddafi, and that was migration control. Libya was basically the wall between Africa and Europe. And Muammar Gaddafi knew this. And he actually wrote an article. I still remember the name of the article because it was so polarizing. Europe will be flooded with millions of blacks. This is what Muammar Gaddafi said at the time. I know it sounds controversial. I don't mean it in, here it is. Let me share my screen here. Gaddafi warned France, this was back in 2011, if I go down, you will be flooded with millions of blacks. Now, I'm not trying to say this in a racist way. I'm just quoting what he said because I want you guys to understand the way that Morocco and kind of the relationship between Gaddafi and Europe, okay? Gaddafi knew that he had massive leverage over the EU because Libya was such a successful country at the time. I mean, sovereign wealth fund, free education, free healthcare. Gaddafi rose the literacy rate in Libya to, I don't know, like a massive difference. So he really made, the country successful. And then he wanted to go a step further and make the continent successful. Regardless of how you guys feel about Gaddafi, I'm not trying to come off as pro-Gaddafi. I'm just stating a lot of what was going on at the time. Because of that, he recognized that he had leverage over Europe. Not only were they, stopping migration into Europe, or Gaddafi was stopping migration into Europe, but at the same time, a lot of people from other countries in North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, when they would leave their countries as refugees, they would just go to Libya. Libya was a successful country. Why would they need to go to Europe when there was already Libya? So Libya was also a place where people that are coming from war-torn countries or unsafe countries in Africa and North Africa, they would go to Libya. That's what Libya became. People wanted jobs, they would go to Libya. Then, after Gaddafi's fall, Libya became a failed state, modern-day slavery, everything else, and the migration into Europe skyrocketed by the hundreds of thousands. Now, this is what Gaddafi said back in 2011, because he recognized that there was this sort of leverage that he had, is that if he went down, he basically told them there are millions of blacks who would come to the Mediterranean to cross to France and Italy, and Libya plays a role in the security of the Mediterranean. And there's another article here. Gaddafi wants EU cash to stop African migration. Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi says the EU should pay Libya at least 5 billion euros a year to stop illegal African immigration and to avoid a black Europe. That's what he said. Speaking on a visit to Italy, he told Europe that they could turn into Africa, as there are millions of Africans who want to come in. Italy has drawn criticism for handling over to Libya migrants it intercepts at sea without screening them first. Far fewer now reach Italy from Libya. European Commission figures that in 2009, the number of people caught trying to enter Italy illegally fell to 7,300 from 3,200 in 2008. That was data collected by the EU. And guess what? Immediately after Gaddafi's downfall, skyrocketed. So now, Morocco kind of recognizes the same thing, but Morocco is actually doing it, I think, with the help of the United States. And of course, this is not, they're not using this as immigration crossing the Mediterranean right now. The specific instance was into the Spanish autonomous cities that are in North Africa that are on Morocco's tips. But you're starting to kind of get an understanding of how this relationship between the EU and some of these African countries plays out. Now, the United States just doesn't like Pedro Sanchez. And, I've been really fearing this, by the way, guys. My fear is that the United States, which I could see happening, they're already doing it, doesn't like Pedro Sanchez so much that they're going to do everything they can to make Pedro Sanchez look so bad for Spain that they can get in another right-wing leader that supports Israel, and that immediately completely flips on Palestine, completely flips on human rights, all of it. I think that they're trying to purposely kind of expedite this. I feel like they're trying to make that happen. I don't know too much about the internal politics of Spain, aside from what I mentioned to you guys, but regarding Pedro Sanchez's stance and how the people feel about him outside of Palestine, you can let me know. I've met a lot of people, Spanish people that like him, a lot that don't. But what I'm saying is the Trump administration definitely has an interest. And if you're seeing now for the first time, I mean, Marco Rubio, gosh, I do not like our Secretary of State at all. Marco Rubio now stating, oh, you know, actually Spain occupies those cities in Morocco. They're actually Spanish administered cities, but they're on Moroccan territory. That's pretty, you know, that's pretty controversial language that the United States has never used. It's controversial language for, you know, what's actually happening, because the United States has never spoken like that in reference to that. Now, I want to show you guys some more articles here, or some more tweets here regarding this. Let me see. There was one that I saved. I saved that I think I wanted to show you guys. This is very serious. I'm receiving these images of how Moroccan authorities are emptying trucks full of young people near the border of Ceuta. Anyone who doesn't want to see that this is a perfectly orchestrated operation by the regime is simply blinded. I mean, look at this guy. What is that? He's just there. You know, now I understand that he wouldn't be able to stop them and shove them back in, but he's just there watching. You're not getting a phone call. Maybe he would be recorded. They're just like watching as this happens. And then, wait, is he about to? So, like, what's going on here? The situation is disgraceful. Every summer, the same thing. This is Morocco's responsibility. Like, using migrants to destabilize his neighbors. We should hit them with a hefty fine. But he's buddies with the United States. And here's another tweet. These guys never tweeted congratulations at Morocco before. This is regarding Gideon Saar, the foreign minister of Israel. And the ministers have tweeted about it after what Morocco sent to Spain. After what Morocco sent to Spain happened. You just feel the threads of international geopolitics and messages. Sometimes it's like an online taunt. Now Spain is deploying the military to Ceuta to help secure the border after mass migration overwhelmed local police. So, with all of this being said, you know, the average normie, or the people that really just don't pay attention to what's happening in the world, are unfortunately going to see this as some sort of left-right issue. Now, I agree that you can definitely have a conversation about immigration policies between the right and the left. You can definitely do that. Also, keep in mind that, sure, yes, Pedro Sanchez's immigration policies are definitely not something that's making the right happy. This specific situation is geopolitical blackmail by Morocco. It's not because of the recent Supreme Court ruling. It's because of specifically Morocco being angered, Morocco plus the United States being angered and wanting to kind of shove it to Spain. That's what's going on. Now, let me read. Let me go ahead and read some of the comments here. I feel like I tried to get my comment. My thing fixed, but it was like messing up on me. Here we go. There we go. Moroccan king is in love with Netanyahu. Spain needs to stay strong. Israel prints all over this. Oh, what are they doing? It's it's an empty land. It is beach day. Many players are invested in civil war in Europe, ushering in the times, punishing the Romans. If I was Pedro Sanchez, I would say it like it is. Tell the whole world, including Morocco, that Morocco is a Zionist country. Would go well in Morocco, I expect. Honestly, I agree totally, Samara. I think they should do the exact same thing. Israel doesn't like Sanchez, Free Western Sahara. So definitely agree, guys. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you guys found it interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you're Spanish, also, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. I bet you have some pretty interesting insight that I'd love to hear. If you guys haven't yet, definitely please click the subscribe button and give it a thumbs up as well. It helps me reach more people like you. Hope you guys have a great night, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye, everybody.